Hey guys, welcome back to Ripe Stories. In this video, my psychotic parents demanded I give them my house, claiming that I am too rich and must support my loving parents. They treated me like dirt for decades and now expect me that I save them just because we are family. Let's dive right into the video. So I am in my early 30s and I've worked hard to get to where I am today. As a kid, I grew up with my two parents, who we will call Karen and Phil. To put it as simply as possible, they were the worst parents any kid could ever ask for, at least one of the worst. They were nothing short of emotionally and physically abusive. Any mistake made would result in a lecture and a beating. I'd be called a myriad of things. Stupid, dumb, idiot would be some of them. They would curse at me and tell me that I was the devil's spawn, etc. I honestly did not know why they held so much resentment for me as a kid. The abuse became so normalized that I assumed every parent did that to their kid. Once, on the rare occasion that I was allowed to hang out with my friends, my friend accidentally broke a glass. I was so worried for him, expecting his mom to come out and hit him. Even though I assumed that beatings were normal, I did not want to see that happen in front of me, you know. But his mom simply came out and cleaned the stuff up, telling him to be more careful. I was confused by this and confided in my friend. I guess he got freaked out and told his mom, who then had a talk with my parents. I appreciate where she was coming from, but that honestly made my situation worse. Karen and Phil thought that I was being ungrateful by complaining about them and that I was spreading lies to other people and making them look bad. Well, needless to say, I got another beating. Ironic, right? When I was in high school, I would try so hard to spend as much time outside of school as possible, because as abusive as they were also highly neglectful. I guess they just had to amplify their abuse anytime they cared enough to see me. The point is, I would spend as much time as I could outside of my household. I'm really grateful that I ended up with the right crowd though. I really could have easily fallen into the trap of debauchery and become angry, violent, a degenerate, and I know I'm violent because of my family history, but I'm glad that I managed to surround myself with the right group of people who led me the right way. Instead of spending my time doing God knows what, I put my energy into sports, academics, and other extracurriculars. Of course, there was some debauchery here and there, but just standard teenage experimenting. Nothing too crazy. My life hit a turning point when I turned 16 years old. Karen and Phil finally started paying attention to me. For what reason, I will never know. All I do know is that they began criticizing the time I spent outside of the home. I guess they felt that I had gained too much independence for their taste and that they needed to squander it. One day after coming home from track practice, they yelled at me about how I was spending too much time outside and that they never granted me permission to do this. I said that I'd been doing it for years and that they never had a problem until now. One thing led to another and it turned into a full-blown argument. In the heat of the moment, Phil yelled that I was no longer part of the family and that I had to get out of the house. I was honestly in shock and I tried to remain in the house, but Phil physically threw me out. Then he tossed my stuff down from my room on the second floor along with a bag and told me that I had to leave or that he would make me, in light terms, beat the living crap out of me. Of course, I left. I walked far a bit. I honestly don't know why I did. I think I was just in shock and was walking to process it all. Then I realized what really happened. I debated whether I wanted to return to my house, but I knew my parents would only beat me more, so I decided that I would go to my friend's house. It was late, so I wanted to phone them, but I didn't have access to one, so I just came over. His mom greeted me. This is the same friend who broke the glass, and after I explained the situation, she took me in. I quickly grew distraught, but I came to realize that it was the best decision Karen and Phil ever could have made for once. My friend took me in, and I lived at his house, helping around and paying rent to keep things fair. Angry at Karen and Phil and realizing that they would never do anything for me, I decided to legally emancipate myself. I caught them at a good time because they were still fuming at my apparent disrespect from the argument and quickly agreed to let go of their legal rights. Since then, I've earned everything by myself with help from good people here and there. After high school, I went to college in a city 2 hours away. It was close enough where I could visit my hometown friends while far away enough that it felt like I was turning a new leaf. I pursued a degree in nursing and have certificates for nursing as well as physical therapy. My education combined with the experience I earned from part-time jobs and internships landed me a pretty nice job in a hospital, and I make enough to live comfortably now. Now, with all that context out of the way, let's get into the meat of what actually happened here. Everything was as normal as it was. I was at work when I felt this incessant buzzing in my pocket. If you don't know, oftentimes healthcare workers will use work phones to communicate with each other, and I bring both my work phone and personal phone to work just in case there's an emergency with my friends or something that requires my immediate attention outside of my professional life. I thought it was coming from my work phone, so I panicked, thinking that something bad might have happened and I got paged for something, but I saw nothing on my work phone. I checked my personal phone because I was not with a patient or anything, and I thought maybe someone got into trouble. But it wasn't any of that. I saw a flood of messages through my Facebook. I hardly use my Facebook. It is just to keep up with friends or coworkers and also shop on Facebook Marketplace. It was from a person I did not know, but the messages were in all caps, so I decided to check it out briefly. I scanned it and it seemed like just spam messages to me at first. I thought maybe someone was trying to trick me into sending them money or something, so I just deleted the messages and turned off my phone, not wanting to be bothered while I was working. After my shift was done, I went home and checked my phone again, only to find even more messages. Not only text messages, but voicemails too. I was immediately creeped out. I mean, this is starting to sound like the start of a horror movie, you know what I mean. I read the messages thoroughly and immediately felt a blinding rage. It was Karen. Now, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but out of both of my parents, Karen was the one who abused me the most. She was extremely violent and always moody. She would beat me with anything she could find, only using her hands when she couldn't find anything else. Once she even hit me with one of my own toys, a pirate's sword. I know I get my anger from her, and thus I have a lot of issues with her specifically. Her messages were long and bold, but she essentially said that I owed them financial support and that I should help the people who raised me after abandoning them for so long. They claimed that they needed a place to stay and said that I should just give them my house, saying that I could easily rent an apartment elsewhere since I had too much money and was clearly rich, which meant in their mind that I had to support them because they're family. I'm not gonna lie, I spiraled heavily, having a bit of a mental breakdown. I decided to call one of my friends and they came over to talk to me through my breakdown. Eventually I calmed down and decided to sleep off everything, hoping that I would wake up with a clearer head in the morning. In the morning I decided to respond to my mom. This is what I said. "Hey mom, I don't know how you found this account, but if you continue to message me, I will block you. You abused and berated me my entire life. I don't owe you anything. I cut off contact with you for a reason and I won't be changing my mind now. Please don't message me again." Well, of course, she did not listen. I only started receiving more messages from her account. I blocked it, but other accounts kept flooding my DMs. No matter how much I tried to block these new accounts, the more they would pop up. It had gotten so bad that I decided to just leave my personal phone at home because it was distracting me too much from my work. Luckily, none of my friends needed help or anything, so it wasn't too bad, but the messages only grew worse in intensity. Karen kept threatening me, saying that she would sue me and a lot of other things if I did not comply with her demands. The fact that she was not even trying to take a sympathetic route appalled me. Then, when I thought it could not get any worse, I started receiving calls and threatening mail at my house, which really terrified me. Not only did she find my phone number, but she found out where I lived too. Knowing how violent my mother was, I was honestly worried that she might do something out of impulse, considering she knew where I lived. I was doubtful that the police would really do anything, so I decided to consult a lawyer to see if I could approach this without a lawsuit. Honestly though, taking it to court may have been the more straightforward route, but I knew just how long those things could take, and I did not want to see my parents more than I had to. The lawyer was unsure since it was out of his bounds, but remained available for me to talk to. I decided to talk to my friend about how to approach this. I explained everything to him and then he asked me a question that really changed the course of how I approached this entire thing. What do you want to get out of this? Surface level? I really just wanted to stop my parents from harassing me, but deep down, some mischievous part of me wanted to get back at my parents and really punish them for all the things they have done to me. Call me cruel and say two wrongs don't make a right or whatever, but they were truly awful people and I cannot stress this enough, and they got what was coming to them. So what exactly did I do? My friend told me that if I wanted to, I could dig into their past to see if I could dig up something on them. He presented me two options. I could expose them outright or blackmail them to stop harassing me if they found any incriminating evidence. I like the idea of having them be at my mercy, as evil as that sounds. Seeing how crazy they were right now, I figured that any normal approach I took with the law might not have completely dissuaded them, so blackmail was probably the better choice. I hired a private investigator to look into them for me. Of course, I cannot go into the details, but the PI discovered some pretty nasty things about my family, mostly that both my parents have had charges of assault against them and that they committed tax fraud. I remember that as a kid my parents would talk a lot about the other properties they owned. Obviously, this would entail them a bunch of taxes and we would thus have a lot more money than your typical family, but as a kid I remember we always got the benefits that would be considered low income. I never questioned it, not even as I grew up until now. I prepared to use this to blackmail them. At the same time, however, the harassment had only gotten worse. Since my first message, I had not sent Karen anything more, and I guess my lack of rebuttal opened her to more and more harassment. I hoped that she would leave me alone after I did not fall for her bait, but I guess that did not matter to her. She just wanted my money, all this to say they took a different approach with their harassment. While they did ramp up their constant messaging, they began spreading lies about me on social media too. I did not hear about this until I received a message from someone on Facebook. I automatically assumed that it was my parents again and was going to block them until I saw the contents of their message. They explained that they were my aunt, my mother's sister, and that my mother was making quick work of spreading rumors about me in one of their family group chats. Of course, I'm not in this one since I had cut off contact years ago. She then asked to meet up, and although I was hesitant in meeting her, I agreed. However, I did tell my friend about it and he advised me to record everything just in case. We met up at a coffee shop in my hometown. I briefed her that I would be recording everything because I didn't want to get shut down for recording without consent in case any of this went haywire, and when she agreed, I began recording and we talked. I was extremely hesitant at first, but it all melted away once I realized that my aunt was being genuine. I barely recognized her, having only seen her when I was around 5 or 6. According to her, she said that she rarely visited because she disliked her sister's behavior, which was extremely fair because I felt the same way. Wouldn't be in the situation if I didn't. She said she knew of the situation where I got kicked out but was unable to contact me since my parents were refusing to let her know anything and I didn't provide anyone any clues. Of course I don't blame her for anything that happened as it really wasn't her fault, and I told her this, but she was extremely apologetic about everything. Anyways, to the meat of our conversation. She repeated what she said in her message, saying that my mom was trash-talking me in the family group chat. She showed me the messages. It mainly consisted of her saying that I was greedy and selfish and that I was an ungrateful brat. No one replied to any of the messages. My aunt explained that most of my family was on my side after the fallout, so they did not necessarily support the negative talk coming from my mom. I asked her how my mom found my information and about how much I made, and my aunt honestly said that she didn't know. Even now writing this, I still don't really know, but my guess is that my profile was suggested to my mom and she dug through the internet for the rest of the info. It's honestly really easy to find out where people live, which is creepy. I don't really know how she found out that I made a lot of money, but I'm guessing she saw the house and possibly found my LinkedIn and quickly concluded that I made a decent amount of money. After our meeting, I felt a little more at ease with my aunt and she told me that if I ever needed anything, I could contact her. Meanwhile, she would try to convince my mom to calm down. I was grateful for the support. Remember how I said I wanted to get back at my parents? Well, my meeting with my aunt provided me another angle to look at the entire situation. And yes, I wanted to ruin them truly, and what better way was to attack their reputation? Now, their reputation was already bad enough. I mean, abandoning your kid when they are still a minor because of a dumb argument is a pretty good reason to be hated, but not only that, they were practically criminals too. I decided that I would tell my aunt about everything and have her spread it to the family. With that occupying them, they might leave me alone. So I approached my aunt with it, and she apparently has a mischievous side to her too because she agreed with it immediately. Now that my aunt was armed with the information, all I had to do was sit back and watch the chaos unfold. I don't really know how this chain worked, I just know that my aunt shared it with her cousins and it went from there. Eventually, the information landed in the laps of the IRS, and according to my aunt, the info was shared to a friend who works for the IRS. Obviously, the guy couldn't keep the information and continue his job, so he reported it. The rest of what I heard was mainly from my aunt, so after the agent reported my parents, they opened an investigation against my parents, unbeknownst to them. Once they realized that the tax fraud was real, they confronted my parents and arrested them. The trial lasted for quite a while, and it was not a short one, and my parents are now facing years of imprisonment for their tax evasion. 5 years actually, according to my aunt. Since then, the messages have stopped. I am glad. If they tried to message me while still they were in the middle of this or while in jail, I would have been shocked. A year has passed since then, and my life has gotten a lot more peaceful since my parents stopped bothering me. It was only a total of 2 months that all of that went down, but it felt like the longest 2 months of my life. I decided to go into therapy again. So I went to therapy beforehand to deal with all the trauma I got from my parents' abuse. Because of my busy work schedule, I stopped going, but this recent incident opened up some old wounds. It was honestly such a stressful time, and I don't want to bother my friends to vent or things like that, so I decided that going back to therapy to process everything that happened will really help. I've kept in contact with my aunt as well. Now that she has my profile and knows who I am, we have maintained a connection. It's honestly been great. She said to contact her whenever I needed anything, but I honestly just do it so I can check up on her from time to time. She's a fantastic woman, and if it were not for her, I think I would still be in that mess with my parents. Through her, I've also gained contact with my other family members. While I'm not incredibly inclined to talk to them as such, since I hadn't really talked to them beforehand, and they still technically remain in contact with my parents, I'm open to the idea of remaining in contact with them. Most of them are taking my side of the whole fallout and this latest incident, so they are not all bad apples. I'm also in the process of getting a restraining order against my parents too. It's a little more difficult than it technically would be since my parents are still in jail, but it's the last thing I can do to ensure that this type of thing does not happen again. Maybe I could have done this first and foremost, and that would have saved a lot of trouble, but I like that I managed to get back at my parents after years of having to deal with their abuse. It honestly makes all the trouble worth it in the end. I think the funniest thing about it too was that their downfall was not about me at all. With the way they were acting, I could have easily gotten them arrested for harassment too, but no, they were just bad people all around, and for that, they got their karma. So one thing I love about my home is the fresh smell of the morning dew hitting my face as I have my first sip of coffee in the morning, sitting on my porch, and from there I can see almost all the land that surrounds me, the big trees and the leaves falling off. My family has owned this land for decades and it has many hidden treasures inside. One of those treasures is Earl, one of the trees sitting at the end of the property. Earl is a great basin bristlecone pine tree that has been sitting on this land for as long as I can remember and for as long as my father and grandfather could remember as well. Its value was hundreds of thousands of dollars because of how old this ancestral tree was. It was named Earl because of my great-grandpa, who lived a long healthy life just like the tree, which still remained. We had theories of it being older than the house or the entire county around it. But the thing is, Big Earl was here long before us and was gonna be long after we all left as well, or that's at least what I thought, because apparently, no matter how strong and big it was, how many storms and heat waves it had endured, Earl had never met something like a Karen. So Karen did not seem that nice already when she moved to the house next to us. She was polite but had a bit of a fake smile and a scrunched nose every time you tried to say something to her. As if something just smelled bad, but she didn't do anything to bother us, at least at first. That was until Karen got the brilliant idea of putting a fence around her property. She walked around the place between the grass and the trees with a contractor following her as he tried to take notes of her quick gibberish. According to her, the area boundaries were not clear and she wanted to fix that, so she got the property plans and thought of a big fence to solve that. Until she reached Earl. According to Karen and her fence, Earl's branches were on her property and she asked, well, not exactly, she demanded that I cut them that same afternoon when she came knocking on my door under the pouring rain. I tried to talk to her and I told her that we would review it when the rain had stopped, and her face contorted in a way I had not seen before, but she dropped the subject and just left. My husband and I thought about checking whatever issues Karen had with the property borders that afternoon, but the rain did not stop, and apparently Karen's plan for the fence did not stop either, because imagine my surprise when I heard a weird sound in the distance at night. A weird metallic sound followed by a clashing noise. I did not think much of it, but in the morning, as I sat on the porch as I usually do, the view in front of my eyes had something different that day, and unfortunately I saw Earl was gone. I almost jumped in my spot when I realized this and immediately called my husband as if I feared that I've gone mad and I was just imagining things. He was as shocked as me when he noticed the branches of the big old tree missing from the landscape. Good old Earl laid on the floor, now a felled tree, after all of those decades of standing proudly in our property, and I just felt a mix of rage and sadness that ate me alive inside like nothing had done before. My husband tried to call my name, but it was too late. I was already on my way to Karen's door, with rage running through my veins. She opened the door as if nothing had happened with her scrunched nose when I asked about the tree. "Well, I told you it was in my property and you did not even do anything about it," she tried to reply to me. Even when I told her the value of the tree she had just cut off, she just shrugged and tried to brush the issue off, saying it was some old rotten tree anyway and that she, yes you heard me right, she was gonna sue me because the tree fell on her car, since apparently they sucked at physics in school and her idiot husband and his friends cut down the tree in a stupid way. I was not gonna drop the issue, of course. She had trespassed on my property in the middle of the night to cut off a piece of history that was worth thousands of dollars, as if it was just a minor thing. We had to get the property line surveilled to prevent anything else from escalating further. And by the way, Ripe Stars, unfortunately I had to censor a lot of personal information there because OP was, in my opinion, sharing too much and he might have gotten doxxed if I would have read that in a YouTube video. And really, I don't want to expose anyone's privacy, so that's why I tend to censor things like that. Either way, a few days later I got a lawsuit notice from Karen for the damages that, according to her, I had inflicted on her car. I could not believe my own eyes when I saw that paper, but I was confident though that we were not in the wrong here. She was the one that had illegally come into our property to destroy a piece of it, and nature had done the rest of the job. Luckily for us, so showed the evidence. The surveillance proved that our ancestral tree was always on our property and there was not even a centimeter of it passing onto Karen's land. She had no right to cut it in the first place, let alone without our permission and by her own means, and let's not even talk about her car. We had absolutely nothing to do with that. You should have seen her face when she was ordered to not only pay the legal costs, but also the $185,000 for the worth of the tree that she had taken from us, and also we have to add to that the fact that she lost her brand new car too. Her face was so red that it seemed as if it was gonna explode with rage. She did not say a word as her face slowly contorted and her nose lifted in its usual manner. A little vein in her forehead appeared to be about to pop off at any given second. I think she wanted to say and do so many things to us, but she didn't do so because we were in front of a judge, and you wouldn't believe the other things we found out about our dear neighbor Karen. She seemed to have a big record of harassing past neighbors through legal threats. She did this from one house to another, to any place she landed on, but I'm guessing neither of her previous feuds had cost her so greatly as this one did. Because Karen not only had to pay the amount that I mentioned before, she also ended up facing criminal charges for trespassing our property and for destroying our tree and for abuse of litigation. She ended up behind bars for a significant amount of time. Karen had a history of harassment and threatening her neighbors in the past, using legal tools to back up her insane claims and complaints. However, this frivolous lawsuit together with her impulsive actions crossed criminal territory on this occasion, resulting in felony charges for her. As for me, I still sit on my porch in the mornings feeling the morning dew hit my face, with my view having one tree missing unfortunately from its usual splendor, but with justice definitely being served. And here, Ripe Stars, I'm happy that OP got all this money, but sometimes when there are so many memories attached to something, even if it's just a tree, money cannot heal all the wounds. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/petty revenge. It is titled "Entitled Karen Does Not Get to Watch Her Football." So I've never been a petty person, mostly because I am incapable of confrontation until this weekend. So we were invited by a close friend for an all-expenses weekend on a luxury houseboat that sleeps 20 guests as a celebration for her 60th birthday. We had not met a lot of her family members and friends from school days, but everyone on the boat was lovely, with one exception. the birthday girl's sister-in-law. I've never met a more selfish, entitled whiner in my life, and she was making the trip unpleasant for everyone. Well, then on Sunday she demanded the music, which was not loud, to be turned off so she could watch the Liverpool game in the bar/dining area on the TV screen. Some of the guests had gone big game viewing on the small boats and the rest were in the jacuzzi, chilling, drinking and laughing. So it was only the entitled Karen who was insisting on watching on the upper deck with volume full blast and denying everyone else, including the birthday girl, the chance to listen to music while chilling. Being an introvert, I was feeling a bit peopled out, so I went to the upper deck to sit on a deck chair and scroll through my phone a bit. Karen was yelling at the TV while at the same time berating the staff. Imagine my surprise when I unlocked my phone screen to find that my Android had automatically connected to the Android Smart TV. I should also point out that we had Wi-Fi on the boat, so if someone wanted to watch something that didn't interest the others, they could have easily streamed their program on their phone, allowing everyone else the pleasure of not having to listen to every moment. Again, usually I'm not a petty person, but when I hear her swear at the very sweet bartender, I just couldn't help myself. Every time something exciting was about to happen in the game, I would simply turn off the TV. Sometimes I would just randomly mute it, and everyone on the lower decks could hear her yells of frustration. Turning the TV back on and waiting for the app to start streaming again would take a few minutes each time. I thoroughly ruined her sporting viewing. She then spent the evening complaining about the terrible Wi-Fi signal and the useless TV while I tried not to laugh. This morning when we disembarked and Karen had stormed off to her car, annoyed about some other trivial thing, I confessed to the other passengers what I had done. The laughter and appreciation showed me that I was not the only one fed up with this irritating woman. Mess with the birthday girl's relaxing weekend and apparently I will find a way to mess with you. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.